heart of where innovation, money, and power collide in Silicon Valley and beyond. This is Bloomberg Technology with Caroline Hyde and Ed Ludlow.
Live from New York and San Francisco, this is Bloomberg Technology. Coming up, the race to reward. The Biden administration is against the clock to complete CHIPS Act deals with top companies before the Trump takes office.
And come to Saudi Arabia, the country's $100 billion pitch to become an AI powerhouse hub.
And DraftKings shares, they bounce back after earnings and a tough end to the year for the online sports betting company. We speak with the CEO. But first, let's check in on these markets because I'll give you a 5-day chart. Today, we're just flat, slightly lower on the NASDAQ 100, coming off of those record highs. But we did power to new records on this particular benchmark. A flurry of earnings is something we need to dissect. So, too, is a Fed rate cut that helps us push higher. But, of course, the election result also. We're up 5.2%, the best week since mid-September, Ed. What are you watching on the micro?
So I think we're still in a stage where you look at single names and we're thinking about winners and losers post-election day. Tesla continues to have momentum. It is trading at its highest levels since early May of 2022, gone beyond $1 trillion of market cap, whether it closes there or not. But there's the association Trump with Musk, and then there's the analysis of whether Trump policy adjustments will impact negatively or positively that name. Elsewhere, there is a scramble in D.C. and across this country in the chip sector about what happens next. Intel is modestly higher in the session, but on the week, over 5 days, on track for its best week since June. Could it be a beneficiary of the Trump administration? What Bloomberg is reporting is that deals are done, negotiations settled for CHIPS Act funding, but in some cases, is there renegotiation to try and actually get access to money through the Biden administration before Trump 2.0 takes effect and President-elect Trump takes office in January of next year? Karen.
I know Pat Gelsinger spoke to you after the earnings with the frustration at how slow that money has been coming out of the door, Ed. Let's discuss that all a little bit more. Bloomberg's Mackenzie Hawkins has a great piece out just talking us through how chip companies are basically racing, as is the Biden administration, to get access to that CHIPS Act funding. What is the latest?
So earlier this year, the Biden administration announced a slate of multi-billion-dollar awards for some of the most important companies in the semiconductor industry to build factories on American soil. The funding comes from the CHIPS Act, which he signed in 2022. It's a major bipartisan initiative to revitalize the American industry. Since those announcements, companies have been going through pretty onerous due diligence, and some of them still haven't reached final term sheets. So now the Biden administration and those couple of companies, in particular Intel and Samsung and Micron are the big ones that we're watching, are trying to get those incentives locked down so they can get money out the door before there's a potential for renegotiation under a Trump admin.
Intel and Micron, two of the names I showed a moment ago, Micron lower in the session. Sources are telling us that those names, the I's are not dotted, the T's are not crossed. Which areas do they still have to negotiate, Mackenzie?
It varies by company. In Intel's case, part of the hang-up is over what's called a change of contract provision, which is a fancy way of saying what happens if Intel spins off its manufacturing business or is acquired in part or in whole. Now, Gelsinger has said we're going to keep Intel together. Intel has said it's making good progress on the award negotiations. But you can imagine why that's a sensitive provision with a company that is going through some serious financial troubles.
The key issue here is, as you said at the top, this is bipartisan in nature. So where might we see changes made? We have heard in recent days, weeks, in key podcasts, Trump really rail against what he sees as, well, money out the door when he thinks tariffs would just bring TSMC to build in the US, for example.
The general consensus among industry lobbyists and government officials in Washington is that the broad contours of this program will stay the same. It passed with bipartisan support. It was Trump's first administration that recruited TSMC to Arizona in the first place. But Republicans are already taking aim at what they consider to be social provisions of the Biden administration's implementation. Things like requirements for child care facilities or expectations that companies will work with local labor unions or try to limit the environmental impact of their facilities.
Bloomberg's Mackenzie Hawkins, thank you for your reporting. Let's get the market's perspective and bring in Eric Freedman, Chief Investment Officer at US Bank Asset Management. I think we start with semiconductors, right? I talked at the beginning of the show about still trying to discern the winners and losers in Trump 2.0. Through that lens, how are you viewing chips right now, Eric?
Yeah, Ed, we're still favorable on the chip space. I think the distinction that we're really trying to make is, number one, in terms of the beneficiaries of AI, that is certainly a story that lots of people talk about, because there is still some concern in terms of hardware and peripheral sales, just, with a weakening labor market, some softening, not just in the US, but across the globe. What does the upgrade cycle look like? What will corporate CapEx specific to peripherals and hardware look like? We're seeing some stabilization, Ed, but really not necessarily an uplift. So, probably more the idea of will we see diffusion of AI chips beyond the hyperscalers? Again, hyperscalers have a ton of free cash flow.
Okay.
And that's what we've seen consistently throughout this earnings season. And so the ability to almost self-fund AI chip demand, we think will continue. So I think there's almost a business to business versus business to consumer angle. We're probably more interested in the business to business angle for chips. But then more specifically, will we see that diffusion out beyond, again, hyperscalers? Will AI chip growth, again, meet end demand? We still think there's a backlog there. That's why we're still bullish.
Eric, how's the US bank asset management team modeling for Trump tariff policy?
Yeah, I think it's important to really discern probably by country and by region. And I think that almost a knee-jerk reaction that we saw heading into election day and then the immediacy following the election is that, look, there would be this, almost broad tariff policy set across not just China, which is a very common refrain from both parties heading into the election, but also, Western Europe in particular. And if you look at the performance in particular of IFA, again, developed international stocks, you look at what's happened within the currency realm, there is still this view that, look, tariffs are coming. I do think that our modeling work suggests that differentiation is probably an underappreciated point right now in the marketplace. So as we await, again, not just the specifics on what tariffs looks like, but also who's going to be in the cabinet, that can have a material impact on just, again, maybe the glide path of what tariffs look like. Last thing I'll say is this. There's the possibility of more of a glide path approach, almost an initial set and then perhaps an expansion depending on success, as well as depending on how the other side reacts. The reaction function of those impacted by tariffs is one that we, again, have to also model in and something we're very focused on.
To that point, has any of your feelings changed on big American companies with large exposure to China? Do you get more nervous around that, or actually does things stay the same?
Yeah, Caroline, I think it is a bit more nervous. When I say nervous, meaning the range of outcomes that we're modeling has to expand. And I think that if you look at, for example, what's happening in the Chinese stock market, we view as completely anomalous. That is more of a policy-driven China really trying to regain some of the spotlight with the challenges they have structurally within their economy. And most of the issues that we're seeing within, the supply chain, that's the part that we think is key. And there was a lot of rhetoric and obviously discussion about the supply chain and what requirements were going to be really imposed, if you will, pre-election. Now that we have the election results largely behind us, the extent of the supply chain is probably our next area of focus. So I do think that in terms of our modeling work, if we're looking at the range of opportunities and considerations, it's widened. But again, having more of a bias towards more onshoring and the potential for more inflation, we think is now our base case, probably more so than it was 2 or 3 weeks ago.
Talk to that inflation, because we've had a raft of consumer-facing tech companies come out with their earnings and they move on the day-to-day. Not individual names, but more broadly, tech exposed to the consumer. Are they going to have a better time of it or a harder time in 2025 if inflationary pressures are there?
Yeah, I think that on balance, we're still optimistic about the consumer, especially amongst the middle income and upper income consumer in the U.S. We do think there is some level of stability in continental Europe. I'm not saying it's certainly a gangbuster consumer electronics demand cycle, but that idea of the quote unquote K-shaped recovery we think is intact. One of the things that we've really looked at, in addition to, again, our role as a bank, we have a lot of purview into delinquencies. We have a lot of understanding what's happening within credit flows. And there is a very marked difference between middle and upper income consumers and lower income consumers. And what I mean by that is if you look at just the bar that lower income consumers have had to overcome, expenses on rents, expenses on credit cards, those are going up. And so that marginal consumer who's maybe lower end, consumer electronics demand is probably going to be challenged for some time. We still think that middle income and upper income consumers will spend. So we think that refresh cycle will exist. On balance, it's still okay. It's really not, Caroline, I'd say gangbusters at this point right now.
Ed Freedman of US Bank Asset Management, really appreciate you coming on today. Meanwhile, coming up, Saudi Arabia betting big on AI, more on their potential $100 billion investment. That's next. This is Bloomberg Technology.
It's time for Talking Tech, and first up, Sony lifts its sales outlook. The Japanese tech maker saw strong music sales and a surprise boost from its PlayStation unit due to sales of the video game Black Myth Wukong. Sony says it now expects a net revenue of $83.2 billion. Plus, Baidu is set to unveil a new pair of AI smart glasses, the likes of which rival Meta's Ray-Bans. According to sources, the Chinese search leader plans to introduce the device at its Baidu World event in Shanghai next week. Sales of the glasses could start as early as 2025 and would likely cost less than Meta's $299 price point. And Nvidia has named NASA veteran Ellen Ochoa as a director. The move bolsters Nvidia's board to 30 members after the AI rally turned the company into a Silicon Valley titan. Ochoa previously ran NASA's Johnson Space Center in Houston and was the first Latina astronaut in space. Karen.
Ed, let's talk Saudi Arabia right now. It is set to make a big push into artificial intelligence, investing up to $100 billion in new projects. We're talking data centers, startups, other AI-focused infrastructure. It's all according to sources. For more, we welcome Bloomberg's Tom Giles on now to talk about this was initially potentially an agreement we'd heard Alphabet, Google helping fund AI focus in Saudi Arabia. But this is much, much bigger in scale now.
There's a lot of ambition behind this project, Caroline. What the Saudis are trying to do is make sure that they have a seat at the table, part of the AI revolution. What can they do? They have a lot of money. There's a lot of money, and they want to invest in infrastructure. Something that we've been writing about and talking to you about for a long time is the need for all of the data centers, all of that computing power that's necessary to drive generative artificial intelligence. The Saudis have plenty of resources to help invest in that. So they are putting a lot of money and time and energy into this effort that they hope will essentially put Saudi Arabia on the map as a major force behind generative AI.
Codename Project Transcendence, according to our reporting. I think what we know from our reporting, Tom, right, is that it's almost a quid pro quo, that Saudi's ready to invest, hand over money to startups, big name players, but in return, they have to have a presence in country.
That's right. One of the conditions is they want to see those operations have a strong toehold right there in the kingdom. Something else that you need to bear in mind when you think about the role that the Middle East is going to play in investing in global startups and investing in this, again, I keep referring to it as a revolution because it is transforming the way we do business, the way we live our lives. Something that's really important, something that we've seen come up time and time again, is the West, led by the United States, wants to ensure that the companies that have a really strong stake in AI, in these startups, in these global businesses, is that they be allied with the West. Something that we've seen before is that when parts of the world, become too closely allied with, say, China, that starts to make people nervous. And so one of the things that you're going to see is if U.S. companies are going to take part in this, they're going to want to see the Middle East allying itself with the West and away from China.
Interesting. So that's sort of the global context. When you get into the nitty-gritty, it's going to be the PIF, that's their sort of sovereign wealth fund, aligning themselves and co-investing with big international companies. It's going to have a similar feel to it, right, than ALAT. Can you just spell out how the funding might look?
Well, we're still getting our arms around that. We know that they want to invest in startups. They want to invest in the infrastructure. These data centers cost a lot of money. All the servers, all the chips, all this computing power that's needed for generative artificial intelligence, the chips themselves, and the equipment needed to build the chips. And you see the potential for Saudi Arabia to become this major world center of the global infrastructure needed around artificial intelligence. We talk a lot about the role that Taiwan plays. We talk a lot about the US and the CHIPS Act and its desire to bring chip making capabilities in the US. This is Saudi Arabia saying, we want to have a stake in this as well. We're going to incentivize you to come to build and invest right here in our backyard.
Bloomberg Technology Senior Executive Editor Tom Giles. Thank you. Happy Friday, boss. All right, coming up, Jason Robins, DraftKings CEO. A lot to talk about in the world of sports betting. Stay with us. This is Bloomberg Technology. All right, shares of DraftKings honestly bouncing all over the place, but currently up almost 5% after reporting third quarter results. Look at that stock go, 5% gain. The sports betting company cut its full year revenue forecast below analyst estimates and reported a wider than expected loss per share. Let's get to DraftKings CEO Jason Robins. There's this idea that the street's fixated on, that there were customer-friendly outcomes, particularly in the realm of NFL. Is that true to your mind? And what's a customer-friendly outcome?
Well, Q3, actually, we said that we had neutral outcomes. So, we had exactly kind of as we expected. And we ended up having a beat in Q3, which is great. Q4, aside from these outcomes, would have been on track for the same. So, basically what it means is that the favorites won a lot and the big-name players scored touchdowns and had a lot of yards. And sometimes that happens in sports. The book sometimes wins, sometimes the customers win. And it's hard to know, right, because we're only even halfway through the quarter yet, how it's all going to end. It could easily swing the other way. But at this point, for the quarter at least, the 5 weeks that we're into it, the customers are winning. And, over the long term, that's great. We need our customers to win. Sometimes they want to win. Sometimes that's part of experiencing the product. So we're really excited, though, that the fundamentals are super strong. We saw 300 bips year-over-year improvement in both promotional rate and gross margin percentage. CACs were down 20% in the quarter. Lots of really good things going on.
It's there's lots of things, full stop, going on. Let's get to technology in a little bit. But in a week where you have a US election and it's getting towards the end of the year, the holidays are fast approaching. How does sports betting stand out? Like, what is the consumer attitude towards placing a bet in a week like this one?
Well, obviously, a lot of distraction with the election going on. But, as you might imagine, people were even talking about speculating on one side or the other of the election markets. And that was available in certain places, too. So, I think it's very much part of the culture now that people want to be, a participant by having an idea, a prediction, a viewpoint on what they think is going to happen. And I think betting is really just, part of that overall trend.
Jason, I want to jump in on that. Polymarket caught a lot of people's attention. Would you go there? Would you expand past sports?
Well, we would only do it if it were in a legal and regulated fashion. So, these types of markets on elections are regulated at the federal level. It's different than the way betting is regulated. It's something that maybe we would, consider looking into before the next election. But I do think that it's only something that we would do in a legal, regulated environment, which is what differentiates us from some of those that are offering it. Now, some are offering it legally now, too. There is a legal framework for it as well, but not everybody is.
Let's just talk about, therefore, that passage of legalization. Is that going to be easier under the next administration? I mean, also just from the point of sports betting, too. We see Missouri come in line, for example.
Well, definitely for us, it's really, the states that are legalizing. And so a lot of what we were watching were the various outcomes in state houses and governor's races around the nation. Obviously, there is some impact from federal government impacts every industry in some way or another, but taxes, other ways, corporate taxes, meaning. But, in terms of legalization, our action is really at the state level. So as you noted, Missouri was a big win, passed the ballot initiative to legalize sports betting, and very excited about that. Missouri is the 18th largest state and a huge sports state, really great sports fans in Missouri. So excited about that one. Hopefully that'll get up and running soon, and hopefully we'll see even more action when the legislatures come back in session in Q1.
Jason, we focus a lot on this program about how sport is accessed, the technology, right? A transition from linear television to OTT. And I'm fascinated by how the betting markets either benefit or don't benefit from that, right? The consumer has so many options about how to watch sport and pay for it. It's astonishing, actually, what flies out of my bank account each month. Is that a tailwind or a headwind to you? When you're thinking about bets being placed in parallel?
Well, I think it's actually a tailwind in that it's part of the overall trend we're seeing, which is sports and interest in sports continues to grow, and betting is a part of that. They're very intertwined. So I think they feed off each other as more and more, people can see more and more sports from around the world, not just their favorite sports or their favorite teams, but they can watch any team or they can watch any sport, and that access is there. That's going to be a benefit to our business. But it's really part of the same overall mega trend, which is, information is easier to come by for the consumer, and the consumer wants to be a more active participant because they have more information and have a viewpoint on things. And I think that's why you're seeing this mega trend around betting that, continues to grow the overall industry in the U.S. and really internationally as well.
Mega trend that you're going to continue to enhance products into. Jason Robins, we appreciate your time. DraftKings CEO on the back of the earnings. And we'll have more from DraftKings next week. Tune in to Bloomberg Chief Future Officer, conversation with the CFO coming up. Meanwhile, we've got plenty more to be dissecting when it comes to tech earnings season as it continues. We'll bring you the latest out of Pinterest, out of Airbnb, so much more. At the moment, Pinterest, Ed, off by more than 15%. This is look, the numbers look good from a revenue perspective for this quarter, but really it's the forecast and the increase in spending on AI that's got people's attention.
Yeah, Airbnb, a funny one, down 7.5%, but a name that was up significantly in after hours. What does a good night's sleep do to an investor? We'll find out. This is Bloomberg Technology.
Welcome back to Bloomberg Technology. I'm Caroline Hyde in New York.
And I'm Ed Ludlow in San Francisco.
Quick check on these markets, Ed, because what a week when it comes to the macro policy, when it comes to Fed rate cuts, when it comes to earnings, when it comes to the election outcome. We are completely unchanged on the Nasdaq 100 today, but it's not unchanged on the week. We're up more than 5%. Best week since September the 13th. We've really seen big tech on top after those particularly electoral results. Looking at Trump media, back higher today. It sunk significantly, more than 20% yesterday. Maybe rumors swirling around the market that the president-elect Trump could well sell off some of his holding in DJT. Of course, that's the owner, the parent company of his media outlet. But actually, he says no. He fights back on that particular one, saying he's holding. We're up 9.5% on the day, but really has been a tell on his electoral chances and then success. I'm looking at Pinterest, though, off by 15%. We're going to dig into these numbers in a moment, Ed. This is a raft of earnings, and we're seeing Pinterest actually, look, double-digit revenue growth. We're seeing still living up to expectations when it comes to 40% growth in adjusted earnings per share, and they build on their overall user base, but the forecast looks a little bit weak. We're worried about advertising trends when it comes to food and beverage in particular, and a spending on AI that might top $500 million in the fourth quarter, and we're seeing the spending also being a worrying for Airbnb. They're investing in product, but that means margins are going to be crimped. It too managed, though, to show pretty good numbers when it came to their fiscal quarter and revenue increasing. Not so for Paramount. Revenue on the downside for Paramount, down by about 5% year over year. We're off by 4.5%. Of course, a company in transition. We understand that the deal with Ellison will be tied up by the first half, maybe at least by the second half of 2025. Good TV results, relatively speaking, good streaming, but film was a weakness. Let's dive into it, Ed.
Yeah, let's get some team coverage and bring in Bloomberg's Ryan Vlastelica. And Ryan, if you go under your bio on the Bloomberg terminal, literally every single technology company there is and ticker is listed. I don't envy you. But in this week of all weeks, many names reported. Carrie's been over some there. Is there a common theme between the technology sector names that posted results?
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me. I would say that there's really been sort of a mixed bag. We've seen some companies come out with some very strong forecasts, some very strong growth, and we've seen some, real double-digit gains in the wake of results. But there's also been a number of companies where, you can point to any number of factors behind it. Maybe the outlook was a little bit weak. Maybe the stock just had rallied so much going into the report that it just had to give some of that back. There's really been a mixed bag here. I'd say on balance, things have been generally pretty positive, but it's certainly easy to, point to some stocks that, for whatever reason, just seems like they weren't able to continue with some of their recent advances.
Can we just go in more on Pinterest? Because this is a big sell-off, and in fact, it has underperformed the entire year. Yes, it rallied last year, but why, when its actual PE ratios, forward-looking PE ratios, are much cheaper than rivals like Meta? What is there a concern here?
Right. So you mentioned the weak forecast. That's really sort of the key issue here. There was a lot of optimism building about this company a couple of months ago, some analyst commentary, some upgrades, some new analysts coming in to say, they're pretty positive on the company's growth potential from here. This forecast does kind of, throw some cold water on that thesis. So we are seeing it pull back. This is one that's really been sort of struggling. It's hard for these smaller social media companies to compete with the Metas of the world, to compete with the other major digital advertising companies. And this is just sort of another example of that.
Ryan, the big one. November 20th, market close, NVIDIA. Is that everything?
It certainly feels that way. I mean, so far this earnings season, we've gotten some pretty positive data points that would seem to augur well for NVIDIA, notably all the big CapEx spending plans from your mega caps. All that points to, ongoing demand for AI chips, ongoing demand for, everything surrounding artificial intelligence. That's pretty positive, for NVIDIA's growth outlook from here. Of course, this is, one of the big gainers of the year. There's a lot of concerns about, how much more can this company keep rising after it's done so well so far in 2024, especially following, last year's big advance. So I think there's a lot of, there's reason for optimism here. There's certainly pretty strong signs that the company's demand drivers are intact, but is that going to be enough given how much it's moved up, given some of these sort of mixed signals from other companies? That's really the the $3 trillion question.
How much it's moved up is almost 200% year to date. Ryan Vlastelica, we thank you so much. Look, let's get more markets perspective for you now. Bring in Fiona Cincotta, who's senior analyst for Citi Index Financial Markets. Boy, what a week! Let's just focus in on really the people that pick up the phone to you post Wednesday and throughout the week. Is it one of optimism around big tech and its continuation of massive market cap increases?
Yes. I mean, the bottom line is yes, and I think that optimism was reflected in what we saw happen in the stock market and what we've seen happen in the stock market since Trump was declared victory, or Trump won. So yes, it seems big tech seems to be a big favorite once again. We're just sort of coming into the elections, and before the elections, there was this sense that sort of big tech was a little bit sort of, out of favor. And we had seen the NASDAQ underperforming the S&P 500 and the Dow Jones, which were trading at record highs, but we've seen that really turn around. NASDAQ's now trading at record highs as well. We've seen a phenomenal rally in tech stock, and I think there is a lot of optimism that this can continue. I mean, we've seen, stocks such as Google, Tesla, we've seen, Apple's underperforming a little bit compared to the rest, but there's a lot of optimism surrounding it. And basically, this is on the back of expectations of a more favorable regulatory environment. We've got other factors that are playing in. You've got the optimism surrounding end of year seasonality, which tends to work in favor as well. Federal Reserve still cutting interest rates, albeit more gradually expected. So, there is a positive outlook. There are some risks ahead, but that doesn't seem to be the focus right now.
Look, there are fundamental risks ahead on your side of the Atlantic, where the BOE is cutting, but also talking about inflationary pressures going forward. You've got the similar echoes here in the US. I just want to dig into Europe a little bit more, though, because what was the reaction when people are wanting to invest in European tech? Look, it was a big week for the German government as well, Fiona. Is it all about US still over European, over international flavour?
That does feel like the way that it is right now. I mean, there does feel like there is a lot of uncertainty still in Europe. There seems to be concerns regarding, as you said, the political situation in Germany, fragile growth. Just broadly speaking, the outlook doesn't feel the same. And then on top of that now, with Trump sort of taking the helm in the US, there are also concerns what that might mean as far as tariffs are concerned. So, you know, geographically speaking, the US is now, without a doubt, the preferred geographical location for investing, particularly in big tech. I think you can get some feed across into Europe, which is going to be beneficial, but I think we're going to see the big positives play out more in the US compared to other areas.
Fiona, is there a single name that clients, investors have been most focused on this week? People phoning you about?
Tesla. that was
why?
the one. Yeah, because of we've had sort of Trump and Elon Musk cozying up recently, and that doesn't seem to be ending anytime soon. So, you know, Tesla has absolutely outperformed, and I think there are expectations that it will continue to do so. Now, it's a bit interesting, the Tesla story, because obviously there is the expectation that actually Trump may reduce benefits for the EV industry within the US. But, you know, Tesla's already such a big, well-established company that actually that means it's going to benefit from that disadvantages to its competitors. So that's just one of the reasons that we think that, yeah, that Tesla's going to be, well, it has been very much on the phones. It's been mentioned. Our clients are looking at it. It's seen volumes go through the roof, and the share price after having a dodgy start to the year is looking much better.
Is it even possible to model into an equity a relationship between the world's richest man and President-elect Donald Trump?
A good question. And I mean, it's not something that we would typically do or have had too much experience doing previously. So, but I think it is definitely something that needs to be taken into account when we're looking at Tesla valuations going towards 2025. And I think that, as we've seen, you know, it has been reflected in the optimism in the share price.
Yeah, just reflect on Gary Cohn and Steve Mnuchin, and somewhat analogous, but maybe they're not. Fiona Sinkota, Senior Analyst of Citi Index Financial Markets. Happy Friday, and thank you very much. So coming up on the show, it's been a stellar week for the crypto community as Donald Trump's victory paves the way for deregulation and potentially more innovation in blockchain. We'll discuss next. Ooh, look at Bitcoin. This is Bloomberg Technology. This is Bitcoin, and it's trading at its highest level ever, just below 76,000 US dollars per token. It's worth saying again out loud, highest level ever. That's all. Bitcoin. Karen.
It is, Ed. And there's a reason for it. Because many feel that the next administration, and indeed Congress, will be particularly crypto-friendly. Delta Blockchain Fund General Partner Kavita Gupta is with us. Will it be? What action do you need to see first and foremost to make the new record highs vindicated?
Hey, Caroline, just the president-elect. And then, of course, you have Elon Musk standing next to him. And then you have all the PAC, which has really donated this time. This election has been one of the biggest crypto PAC money going into a political motive. And we literally saw such a positive return out of it. Everything is up. You have seen Bitcoin all-time high. Most of the currencies are 20 to 40% up. But look at even Dogecoin. It has literally jumped up 21% there.
look at some of your investments. You were like first checks into some significant DeFi projects. One protocol, for example, Polygon, has had an epic time because it, along with Uniswap, was kind of singled out by the SEC as potentially not living up to what is or isn't a security. How important is a change at the top of the SEC and clarity around regulation going forward for projects and protocols such as this?
That is one of the main reasons for a big boom, Caroline, because we are seeing the whole DeFi ecosystem, suddenly Uniswap, Aave, and all the DeFi protocols suddenly bumping up their prices up to 20 to 35% jump. Because I think now everyone is expecting a change in attitude with SEC, with the new administration on the hemp, where President Trump has actually said in one of his rallies that he's going to change the current SEC commissioner and going to have much more pro-friendly agenda. So everyone is expecting much more clarity on regulations. And the feeling, what I kept on feeling within the crypto ecosystem is that it is going to be crypto for America and America for crypto after a very, very long time.
Kavita, prior to the election, hello, by the way. I was having some fun with the Bitcoin chart, but there are some serious things. Like prior to the election, a lot of people came on this program and said, well, look at the inflows, the ETF products, how significant that is, the halvening, and then sort of the vibe shift. Things were more positive around the underlying technology well before we knew the outcome of this election. I wonder how important those factors still are, whatever happens with this Trump presidency.
Absolutely. Just the day of the election, Ed, look at the amount, $1.28 billion inflow for Bitcoin ETF, $78 million inflow in 24 hours in ETH ETF. Now people are expecting Solana ETF, Near ETF, but at the same time, a lot of IPOs, companies which has been sitting quiet, like Anchorage, Circle, Chain Analysis, bunch of them, they are basically have been sitting, FalconX, just been sitting and waiting. And we had that conversation with you like 3 months before the election. Like, are we going to see a big IPO boom? Are we going to see a lot of legal construct? Are we going to see a lot of ETFs coming in? And I feel like over the next 6 months, it's just gold for the crypto industry.
Will Trump open the door to modernization of the financial system?
I think the most important thing which we have been asking for over 8 years is the clarity on regulations. Everybody, every crypto founder across the world wants to work with the government and SEC and any regulatory body to have clarity. And I feel like the biggest pathway which America can set trend is to have that legal clarity and to create a safe environment for retail customers and for technology builders to work together. So I think that's going to be the biggest reason for all these movement of prices to be up.
Delta Blockchain's Kavita Gupta. Really great to have your take today. Thank you. Coming up, we're going to talk about President-elect Trump a little bit more, but what the impact is for TikTok. This is Bloomberg Technology.
Some TikTok staff and creators are hoping President-elect Trump may become the social media app's savior as it faces a potential ban come January. Bloomberg's Alexandra Levine joins us now, and there are many questions. I mean, President-elect Trump has hinted that he opposes an outright ban, but there's a legislative action underway. What have you written about?
Well, I think that really since Biden had signed this law earlier this year that would effectively ban TikTok in the new year, unless its China-based parent company ByteDance sells it. The big question has been, is this actually going to happen? And I think the feeling was really, if Harris is elected, that she would sort of finish the job that Biden had started. Now that Trump has been elected, he was originally the president who tried to ban TikTok back in 2020. On the campaign trail, he did a stunning 180, saying that now he doesn't believe in a ban. And so I think the reason why there is now even more uncertainty than there was prior is because his rhetoric has completely changed, leaving folks inside the company wondering whether he will in fact follow through on what he has said.
And then there's the closeness with Musk, who has X, and whether he sees TikTok as a rival, even though perhaps he's a bit more pro-China than others. Can you just give us the very next step? What do we look for in the legal action, at least?
So there are a bunch of things that Trump could try to do once he takes office to try to reverse what has been done or try to stall it. And I think, though, a lot of the things that he could do would be really difficult. They'd be uphill challenges. They'd be politically sort of unpopular amongst folks in his own party who were really key to getting this law to force a divestiture or to ban the platform, getting it across the finish line in the first place. He could come up with another plan that satisfies both the company and the U.S. government on national security. He could look for an American buyer, and he's got people who are certainly interested, who are political allies of his, who are also donors. Yes, exactly. And he could also try to get Congress to repeal or amend the law that they had passed. I think, though, the most likely thing and the path of least resistance would be to let this legal process that you've talked about play out on its own. So we're expecting a decision in December that where the courts in D.C. will rule whether the law that President Biden has signed should be overturned or whether it should be upheld. And then it's likely that legal proceedings following that TikTok may well fight will just drag on well past the January deadline for when the ban would have gone into effect. So I think the easiest thing for Trump would really be to sit back, watch the legal process play out, and that way the legal process takes care of it without him having to be super proactive, and he then does not have to do a complete about-face on his 2020 crusade against TikTok when he initially tried to ban it. And he would avoid then being seen as sort of softening this tough on China stance that's been super central to his entire agenda.
Alexandra Levine, all things TikTok, we appreciate it. Meanwhile, look, traditional media executives, David Zaslav, for example, over at Warner Brothers Discovery, or Perry Sook over at Nexstar, see a possibility for more mergers and indeed deregulation as Donald Trump returns to the presidency. Bloomberg's Kelsey Griffiths joins us for more. So M&A going to suddenly launch through when it comes to at least the more local news and TV side of the equation?
Well, if the broadcast executives have their way, that's exactly right. You know, I think we've heard on earnings calls over the last couple days that these executives are really looking for a Trump administration that is more friendly to deal making of all kinds, whether that is in the broadcast space, whether that's in the content space, whether that is permitting some mergers that, maybe wouldn't have even been pitched under the Biden administration. So I think it has a lot of folks really watching this space.
Kelsey, let's think about a name like Nexstar, how its business is set up, but it's got some history with government agencies. What kind of happens to them under Trump 2.0?
That's right. So Nexstar is the largest owner of local broadcast stations in the country, and they've previously tried to buy up more stations. They actually got in trouble with the FCC and had to pay a $1.2 million fine earlier this year because as part of a merger agreement, they were supposed to divest some stations. And they actually effectively maintained control of a station in New York. That was at least what the FCC found and ended up hitting them with that fine. So Nexstar has been looking around for a while for other ways to expand sort of their broadcast empire. And they're hoping that under the Trump administration, the Federal Communications Commission could actually get rid of some of the broadcast ownership restrictions that have held them back in the past.
So some rule changes could help. What about people who lead the FCC or within it?
That's right. So we are looking at an incoming Republican administration across the government, obviously, but that means big changes at the FCC. My sources are telling me that we are very likely to see the senior Republican at the FCC, Brendan Carr, be nominated as FCC chair. And Carr could, really make some big changes for broadcast executives in doing some deregulatory action that would benefit the broadcasters. He would also have some pretty big effects on the rest of the media landscape. Carr has aligned himself with Elon Musk. He has talked a lot about TikTok and rolling back its presence here in the U.S. over national security concerns. So it could be a very different FCC under Carr. So we're going to be watching that too.
Bloomberg's Kelsey Griffiths, great reporting and happy Friday. Thank you very much.
What a week, what a day, what another edition of Bloomberg Technology, Ed.
Yeah, recap. If there's any day to recap, it's today. Go on the podcast. You know where the podcast is. Thank you to the team in New York City. A historic week around the world and the team here in SF. This is Bloomberg Technology.